Hello, namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Donald Trump is on a mission to Asia. He was in Japan today and Tokyo rolled out a Trump-style red carpet with American beef, baseball, golf presents and rare earths. It was a masterclass on wooing President Trump. But what did Japan get in return? Also on the show, the countdown is on for a meeting between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump. Beijing has fired a warning shot before the talks. In India, the government is recalibrating its oil deals with sanctions on Russia. New Delhi is looking to diversify. We will tell you how. In the US, Elon Musk wants $1 trillion pay package. If not, he may leave Tesla leadership. And a worrying statistic from OpenAI. It says 1 million people every week are talking about suicide to ChatGPT. All this and more lined up. The headlines first. US forces kill at least 14 people in strikes in the Pacific Ocean. Washington says it destroyed 4 drug smuggling boats in the operation. The Trump administration's anti-narcotics campaign has killed more than 50 people so far and destroyed at least 14 vessels in the Caribbean and the Pacific. Talks between Pakistan and Afghanistan remain deadlocked after their worst border violence in years. On Saturday, talks aimed at establishing long-term peace began in Turkey, but there has been no breakthrough. The one-time allies have had frosty relations since the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan in 2021. In India, the second cloud seeding trial was conducted in Delhi today. It's a first-of-its-kind initiative. 3 more trials will be held till December. Cloud seeding is the process of generating artificial rainfall. This is being done to tackle Delhi's severe air pollution. Ethiopia calls for international mediation with Eritrea over its access to the sea. Addis Ababa says it has an irreversible claim to the coastline as tensions rise between the Horn of Africa neighbors. More than 30 years ago, Eritrea gained independence from Ethiopia and left it landlocked. And Elon Musk's company XAI launches Grokipedia to compete with Wikipedia. The content on it is generated by artificial intelligence. Musk has been a regular critic of Wikipedia. In 2024, he accused the site of having ideological bias.
Great honor to be with you, especially so early in what will be, I think, one of the greatest prime ministers. I think you will be one of the great. Everything I know from Shinzo and others, you will be one of the great prime ministers.
This woman is a winner in the history of Japan.
Thank you, Mr. President.
There are no easy assignments in geopolitics. Every meeting is a challenge, even more so if you're new to office. Things can be overwhelming and tricky to handle. Just ask Japan's new Prime Minister. Her first foreign policy assignment was to host Donald Trump. It does not get any trickier than that, and yet she pulled it off. No bad headlines, no testy exchanges, and multiple deals to boot. So how did Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi ace the Trump challenge? With a tailor-made strategy, she hosted Trump at a palace in Tokyo. The building is straight out of a Trump fantasy. Massive ceilings, gold-plated walls, and a military guard outside. It's probably everything Trump wanted. Once inside, the flattery continued. Takaichi and Trump watched some baseball together. After that, it was time for talks. One name dominated the early conversation, and that was Shinzo Abe, the former Prime Minister of Japan. He was a mentor to Takaichi. He was also a close friend of Donald Trump. Both leaders recalled their ties with Abe.
I often heard from Prime Minister Shinzo Abe about President Trump's dynamic diplomacy. You contributed to Asia's peace, including helping bring about a ceasefire deal between Thailand and Cambodia.
As you know, Shinzo Abe was a great friend of mine, and I was very saddened to see what happened. It was so shocking, but he spoke so well of you, even before we knew what was going to happen and your ascension.
So Trump and Takaichi found a common thread. After that, the praises poured in. Takaichi promised to nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. She also urged closer cooperation with Washington. Her goal? To unleash a golden age of US-Japan ties.
In such a short period of time, the world has become more peaceful. I highly value President Trump's unwavering commitment to world peace and stability. I myself have been deeply impressed and inspired by you. In order to make Japan and the United States stronger and more prosperous, I want to work together with President Trump to build a new golden age of the Japan-US alliance.
And Trump reciprocated. He promised to do any favors for Takaichi. He said she was on course to be one of Japan's greatest leaders.
On behalf of our country, I want to just let you know, anytime you have any question, any doubt, anything you want, any favors you need, anything I can do to help Japan, we will be there. We are an ally at the strongest level. I think one of the greatest prime ministers. I think you will be one of the great. Everything I know from Shinzo and others, you will be one of the great prime ministers. I'd also like to congratulate you on being the first woman prime minister. That's a big deal.
That's high praise from Donald Trump. That too at a very early stage. Takaichi only took office last week. She's Japan's first ever female prime minister. And her politics? It's right-wing conservative. Takaichi wants to boost Japan's military spending. She's in favor of a tougher China policy. So there is strategic and ideological alignment with Donald Trump. And today, she aced the final piece of the puzzle, flattery. Takaichi presented multiple gifts to Trump. One was a golf putter used by Shinzo Abe. The other was a signed golf bag. It belonged to Japan's first golf major winner. At lunch, there was more appeasement. Japan served American rice and American beef to Trump. And why is this strange? Because Japan is known for its rice and beef. So why would they serve American items to Trump? The idea was to send a message to him, to assure him that Japan will buy American farm goods, even sensitive ones like rice and beef. During their talks, Takaichi also announced a big investment. It's being led by Japanese car giant Toyota. They will invest $10 billion in the US. The idea is to build plants all over the country. So let's rewind for a bit. Japan hosted Trump with flattery, American beef, baseball, and golf presents. Like I said, it was a tailor-made strategy. And what did Japan get in return? Well, they got a trade deal earlier this year. Trump had imposed 24% tariffs on Japanese imports. He later reduced that to 15%. But beyond that, Tokyo got some assurances. You see, these are nervous times for US allies. Washington is treaty bound to defend countries like Japan, but no one knows if Trump will actually do that. And this is a worrying prospect for Japan. They're facing a growing nexus of Russia, China, and North Korea. So now, more than ever, Japan needs the US. Today's events highlighted that focus. Trump and Takaichi visited a US aircraft carrier in Tokyo. It is called the USS George Washington. Both leaders spoke to the troops on board the warship. Again, the optics stood out. Trump and Takaichi flew together to the carrier. While speaking, he wrapped his arms around the Japanese Prime Minister. He called the US-Japan partnership a foundation for peace in the region.
This woman is a winner. So, you know, we've become very close friends all of a sudden. The first female Prime Minister in the history of Japan. Madam Prime Minister, This woman is a winner. So, you know, we've become very close friends all of a sudden. Really, there's never been anything like it. Born out of the ashes of a terrible war, our bond has grown over 8 decades into the beautiful friendship that we have. It's a foundation of peace and security in the Pacific.
That was all meant for China. And rest assured, Beijing was watching. They're asking Japan to reflect on its history, basically reminding them of what happened during World War II. In conclusion, this was a trip of optics. It's a lesson on how to woo and appease Trump. But beneath it lies a risky strategy. Japan is gambling a lot to win Trump's support. They're investing some $550 billion in the US. This covers chips, nuclear energy, and cars. What if Trump abandons them despite this money? Well, that's the big risk that Tokyo is taking. If you've been following Trump lately, you know that 2 words keep popping up: rare earths. They're everywhere, in every speech, every summit, every handshake photo with a foreign leader from Malaysia to Japan. Trump's latest tour has one recurring theme: rare earths. And these aren't your everyday rocks. They're the building blocks of modern life, from smartphones to fighter jets, electric cars to missiles. You need rare earths to make all of them. But here's the plot twist. China controls the supplies. Trump wants to flip that script. So he's turned his foreign policy into a global scavenger hunt. The first stop was Malaysia. Trump signed a deal for rare earth mining in Malaysia. Then came a flurry of deals with Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia, all revolving around rare earths. Trump's pitch to each nation was simple: you dig and we buy. And finally came the big one in Japan. Trump and the Japanese Prime Minister signed a strategic pact. This is to secure, refine, and stockpile rare earth minerals. And this is important because Japan knows what it's like to be cut off. Back in the year 2010, Tokyo had a maritime dispute with China. So Beijing quietly restricted rare earth exports. It nearly stalled Tokyo's tech industry. This time, Japan is playing smarter. Its deal with the US is not just about investment, it's also about insurance. The 2 countries are planning to set up joint reserves. They will also have what they're calling a rapid response group to handle supply shocks, sort of like a rare earth NATO.
Signing a new deal, and it's a very fair deal, and we look forward to welcoming Japan into the United States and a continuation. And it's something that everybody is very, very excited about.
So this Asia trip was crucial for Trump's mission. Of course, he's not limiting his deals to this region. Just last week, the US signed a deal with Australia. Both countries will invest $8.5 billion in total. Out of this, $1 billion will be invested in 6 months. The plan is to identify, mine, and process rare earths. Trump is already hyping this deal. He says rare earth prices could drop to $2. The current price ranges from $200 to $900 per kilo. Trump claims his deals will bring it down to $2.
We work together very much on rare earths, critical minerals, and lots of other things. And we've had a very good relationship. We've been working on that for quite a while. In about a year from now, we'll have so much critical mineral and rare earths that you won't know what to do with them. They'll be worth about $2.
And there's one more country that is part of this mix: Pakistan. That's right. They too have signed a rare earths deal with Trump. In fact, Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir went one step further. He arrived at the White House with a box of rare earth minerals. There's a picture of him showing them off to Trump. And the US president looks quite interested. But does Pakistan really have the rare earth reserves it is trying to sell? Geologists believe that Pakistan may have massive reserves. It may have deposits of copper, gold, even rare earth elements. But none of it is proven. The US Geological Survey does not even list Pakistan as a known source. But when has that stopped Pakistan? Facts and numbers were never their strong suit. I guess the more relevant question is this: what is Donald Trump trying to do here? What does he hope to achieve with all these deals? You see, we may call these minerals rare earths, but the fact is they are not rare. You can find them in soil across the globe. You can even mine them. The challenge begins after that. The challenge of processing. Extracting rare earths is messy, toxic, and expensive. It's a game that China has aced and controlled since. They took the lead decades ago. And they did it for two reasons. First, Beijing did not mind the pollution it caused. And second, it subsidized every stage of the supply chain. That gamble has paid off. Today, China processes about 70% of the world's rare earths, and it refines nearly 90% of it. It's a classic monopoly. China is the world's one-stop shop for critical minerals, and that gives Beijing enormous leverage.
I think we're going to have a very good relationship with China. And again, they will threaten us with rare earths. I don't think they're threatening us too much right now. But they could do that, but I threaten them with something I think is much more powerful, and that's tariffs.
So can Trump break this monopoly? The answer is no. No one breaks a monopoly overnight. China spent 30 years building its rare earth empire. Trump is trying to undo that in 1 year. Even with billions in investments, it won't happen in a hurry. So again, what is Trump really after? You could say part of it is optics. He's trying to show that he is not sitting idle, that he is doing something about it. The other part is building self-reliance. China has threatened to block rare earth exports. The US doesn't want to be left scrambling for metals, hence the flurry of deals. There's also legacy involved. Trump wants to be remembered as a president who declared mineral independence. But will it actually break China's grip? Not anytime soon. Having said that, this rare earth power play is indeed a turning point, because in the 21st century, the real gold rush is not for gold at all. It is for the dust that makes the digital world spin. The countdown has begun. In less than 48 hours, Donald Trump and Xi Jinping will meet. It's a high-stakes summit. The US and China are looking to reset trade ties. The goal is to finalize a framework to ease tariff tensions and to stabilize the relationship. But ahead of this meeting, their posture has become combative. China is talking tough with the United States. The statement has come from the Chinese premier. His name is Li Qiang. He was in Kuala Lumpur for the ASEAN summit. He did not name the United States, but he did send a pointed message to Washington. Li warned against, and I'm quoting, unilateralism. He said the world should not return to what he called the law of the jungle, where the strong bully the weak. Li said economic globalization is irreversible. He called out protectionism, and he termed it as a huge risk for Asia. Now, coming from China, it's a bit rich. It's like the pot calling the kettle black. China is hardly an advocate for globalization or a rules-based world order. But we know why they're saying what they are. They're taking a dig at Trump's trade policies, at his tariffs. China has managed to survive the short-term pain, but in the long term, the tariffs will hurt them. They will hurt Beijing. It is, after all, an export-oriented economy, so Beijing is pulling all the levers of influence. It is trying to build pressure on the Trump administration. This includes military signaling. Yesterday, tensions spiked in the South China Sea. An American fighter jet and a chopper crashed there. Both crashes happened in a span of 1 hour. The jet and the chopper were operating from the same aircraft carrier. Officials say they were on a routine operation. No personnel were hurt, but the timing could not have been worse. US President Donald Trump is touring Asia, so China lost no time in attacking the US over these incidents. Beijing issued a statement. It criticized US deployments in the South China Sea. It called them, and I'm quoting again, the root cause of instability.
China has noted the relevant reports. Should the U.S. request assistance, China is willing to provide necessary support from a humanitarian perspective. We would like to emphasize that the U.S. military aircraft in question crashed during military exercises in the South China Sea. The frequent deployment of U.S. warships and military aircraft to the South China Sea to flex military muscle is the root cause of maritime security issues and undermines regional peace and stability.
Wang Yi adopted the same shrill tone. He's the foreign minister of China. Wang spoke to the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio yesterday. He told Rubio that the U.S. and China must meet halfway and prepare for more high-level talks. Curiously, there was no mention of the Trump-Xi meeting in the official readout from Beijing. A few days back, China's foreign ministry, in fact, was asked about this meeting, and they were evasive in their response.
China and the United States are maintaining close communication regarding a possible meeting between the two heads of state. Further information will be released by China in a timely manner.
China still has not confirmed if Xi will indeed meet Trump, and that's a sharp contrast to Trump's approach. Trump began his Asia tour last weekend in Malaysia. Then he went to Japan, and tomorrow he will be in South Korea. That's where he's expected to meet Xi. And throughout this trip, Donald Trump has been hyping it up. He's been talking about his upcoming meeting with Xi Jinping and building expectations. In fact, he's talking about visiting China too.
I have a lot of respect for President Xi, and we are going to, I think we're going to come away with a deal. But I really feel good. Our country is doing so well economically. Well, sometime after, I'm going to go, or we pretty much agreed that I'll be going to China.
When is that?
In the earlier part of the year.
Okay.
And President Xi will be coming into maybe Washington or Palm Beach or someplace sometime after that.
So Trump is certainly looking forward to the South Korea leg of his trip. We cannot say the same for China, though. Beijing's words and actions are hardly positive. They're not buying soybean from the US. Traders say the shipments are on hold. They're waiting to see how the Trump-Xi meeting goes. Yes, this is hurting American farmers, but it's hurting the Chinese too. They're losing money. The crushers in China, the companies that process soybean, are also suffering losses. They're losing around $25 for every ton of soybean they process. So what explains these losses? The American supplies are cheaper. They also offer better margins to Chinese traders. Despite this, China has put this trade on hold. Clearly, they're ready to absorb the losses. The idea is to put pressure on Washington to drive home the message that until Donald Trump makes a deal, China won't buy. So Beijing's threats are not empty words. They're walking the talk. They're showing Trump that they know how to play hardball. Let's talk about India's oil purchases. They have been under the scanner since the war in Ukraine began. First with Europe's virtue signaling, and more recently with Trump sanctioning Russian oil. We told you about it on the show. Last week, the US sanctioned 2 major Russian suppliers. This is the first time they've sanctioned Russian oil suppliers. And this move has raised a question. Will India stop buying oil from Russia? The answer for now is no. India is not walking away from Russian oil, but it is recalibrating its strategy. And 2 clear moves show this. 1, India is buying more oil from the United States, and 2, India is buying from old reliable sources in West Asia. Let's tell you about the US first. Look at the imports from last month. India bought more than 500,000 barrels a day from American suppliers. That's the biggest jump since 2022. And experts say this trend could continue in November too. What explains the spike? One possible reason could be the trade tensions between India and the US. As you know, Trump has imposed 50% tariffs on Indian exports, so India could be buying more oil to help balance the trade. Of course, oil alone will not fix the trade dispute. A lot more will have to be sorted before we have a deal. The more plausible reason for Indian purchases could be this. American crude is cheaper. Right now, it costs less than other types of crude in the market. Globally, there are two main types of oil: Brent crude and WTI. Brent crude is the global standard and pricing benchmark. WTI is short for West Texas Intermediate. It is mostly sold in North America. Now, at the moment, WTI, this American oil, is cheaper than Brent. So, for Indian buyers, it makes financial sense to buy American oil. They can buy more from the US while the price is right. That's called arbitrage. It is taking advantage of a price gap. And that's exactly what India is doing. It is picking up more barrels from where the price is lower. At the same time, India is also stepping up purchases from West Asia. That's part two of the strategy. From some of its old oil partners. Take Iraq, for example. India is buying more from Iraq's Basra oil fields. The crude from there is called Basra Medium. It now makes up nearly 20% of India's purchases. Same story with Saudi Arabia and the UAE. India is turning to them too. Together, these two countries now supply 22% of India's oil needs. So West Asia accounts for almost half of India's oil basket. That's just Iraq, Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Almost 50% of India's oil imports. And India has long-standing ties with these nations. They offer price stability. More importantly, they offer reliability. It makes sense to lean on them. At the same time, India has not stopped buying Russian oil. Last month, Russia supplied 38% of India's crude requirements, which is a big chunk, 38%. We'll have to see what impact the latest sanctions have. Trump is basically targeting two Russian companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. These are two of Russia's biggest oil exporters. They've been sanctioned. But there's a loophole. The sanctions, the American sanctions, target only two Russian companies, not Russian oil per se. And that's what buyers are hoping to exploit. Consider this statement from Indian Oil's Director of Finance. This is what he said. Russian crude is not sanctioned. It is the entities and the shipping lines which have got sanctions. Today, if somebody comes to me with a non-sanctioned entity and the cap is being complied with and the shipping is okay, then I will continue to buy it. And this is the approach that Indian refiners could take. Many of them have paused new deals with Russia, but they're not pulling out. They're waiting to see how this unfolds. They're waiting for more clarity on US sanctions. So long story short, India is diversifying its energy mix. It is reducing risk. It is broadening its supplier base by buying more from the US and from West Asia and taking a case-by-case approach on Russia. This is India's new energy strategy in motion, one shipment at a time.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Back in the national capital, big development on the cloud seeding front. A Cessna aircraft has now taken off from Kanpur for Meerut for the first such trial. The aircraft is expected to reach Meerut within the next hour, and according to sources, cloud seeding in the region is almost certain to take place today. My colleague Anshul Singh and Shrishti Chaudhary both joining us. Anshul, first give us the latest. Any update on whether the experts feel the conditions are apt today? Because it still depends on what the weather in Kanpur, Meerut and so on can be like.
Well, yes, the first issue that was being faced by the administration was that the visibility in Kanpur was not adequate for the Cessna aircraft to take off from there. But now what we are picking up latest by the way of sources is that the aircraft has in fact taken off from Kanpur and is now about to reach Meerut in the next few minutes. Once it reaches Meerut, then it will go ahead and try to seed clouds out here in the national capital. If I could just show you in the visuals over here as well, there is already a lot of clouds that have gathered over the national capital region. In fact, there are heavy rains that are being reported from places like Agra as well. But yes, the government will definitely try to make sure that they carry out this experiment of cloud seeding today itself. So within the next few hours, we can expect that the process of cloud seeding would start, depending upon the condition of the clouds, because remember, more than 15% of moisture is required in these clouds so that cloud seeding could happen successfully. If at all there is a lot of moisture in the clouds, then this entire process could take somewhere around half an hour for the rains to come down after the clouds have been seeded. If at all the moisture content is a bit on the lower side, then it could take somewhere around 2 hours. What will be the exact locations where the cloud seeding will happen? That is something that the pilots and the experts would have to decide once they take that flight to with the purpose of seeding clouds out here in the national capital. So today, the government is very, very hopeful that they will be able to carry out this entire process of cloud seeding. When will that happen? What are the locations? That is something that that the government will have to figure out once that Cessna aircraft enters into the airspace of the national capital.
All right. Shrishti, what more are you learning? What are the kind of conditions that will be absolutely key for this trial to go ahead today?
Yes, Shivani. So see, it's a very difficult exercise because it depends highly on the weather conditions over Delhi. Now, initially, the IIT Kanpur team had earmarked an area in northwest Delhi, because the experiment cannot be performed over security installation. So they had selected some region over northwest Delhi, but the precise location for the artificial rain will depend exactly on the cloud formation. Now, as the India Meteorological Department had already predicted that there would be a western disturbance. So the western disturbance, which is like a tropical storm that brings rain, has already impacted northwest India. Yes. And there are parts of northern regions which are expecting rain, but we'll have to see once the aircraft actually enters the Delhi airspace, the wind conditions, the temperature, the cloud heights, the size of clouds, which will actually determine whether they can go ahead with the experiment. And I think viewers must understand that it's very difficult to really distinguish if it's a natural rain or an artificial rain. It's only when the experiment is completed that there will be a confirmation that it has been successfully completed. Also, it also depends upon the intensity of spraying, because the rainfall could be just in very trace amounts. It could be 1 mm, 2 mm. This experiment is being performed to check if the air quality can be cleaned. So that depends upon really the intensity and the amount of rain that can happen. And this is actually for the first time that artificial rain is being performed or is being conducted to actually see if it can improve air quality of a region, and especially for the national capital, which suffers from a very bad air quality every winter. As for the latest update also, it's hovering, the AQI is hovering around 300, 305, which falls into the very poor category. So highly probable scenario, and we'll have to see how the experiment eventually goes.
The main aim is to kind of give relief from the very poor levels of pollution and particulate matter. In some places in Delhi and NCR, it actually feels worse than very poor. It could be very much in the severe category. But moving on.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Back in the national capital, big development on the cloud seeding front. A Cessna aircraft has now taken off from Kanpur for
If you have followed Tesla for any length of time, you know the drill. Elon Musk threatens to leave, the board panics, shareholders squirm, and somewhere between the panic and the paperwork, Musk walks away a little richer. And this time is no different. Tesla's board says Elon Musk could leave if they do not approve his new pay package. Do you know how much this pay package is? It's a whopping $1 trillion. $1 trillion to lead Tesla. That's what Musk wants. Will Tesla accept it? Or will Musk walk away if he's not paid $1 trillion? Our next report tells you.
Tesla's board just sent shareholders a letter that sounds suspiciously like a hostage note. Only the hostage is Elon Musk's attention span. Chair Robin Denholm's message was clear. Approve this package or risk losing him. Without Musk, Tesla could lose its time, talent, and vision. In corporate speak, that means one thing. We have no idea what happens to this company if Elon gets bored and walks away. And that, apparently, is worth $1 trillion. The proposal is officially called a performance-based compensation plan. It would grant Musk 12 tranches of stock tied to almost impossible targets. A market cap of $8.5 trillion, along with milestones in AI, self-driving tech, and robotics. For context, Tesla is currently valued at around $700 billion. So, this plan assumes Tesla will become more valuable than Apple, Microsoft, Saudi Aramco, and half the global auto industry combined. But Tesla insists this is not about greed. It's about motivation. Musk, they say, needs to be incentivized, because apparently owning $200 billion worth of Tesla stock isn't motivational enough. Of course, this isn't Musk's first billion-dollar rodeo. Back in 2018, Tesla handed him a $55 billion pay plan, then the largest in history. Shareholders approved it. Tesla's stock soared. Elon Musk became the world's richest man. But in 2024, a Delaware court threw out that plan, ruling that Tesla's board wasn't exactly independent. The judge said Musk had too much influence. It said the deal was unfair to shareholders. Tesla tried to get shareholders to re-ratify it in 2024, framing it as a matter of fairness. The court, however, disagreed. This time, Tesla isn't even pretending this is about fairness. It's about fear. Denholm's latest letter practically begs shareholders to approve the plan to retain and motivate Musk. She warns that without it, Tesla could lose significant value. To make it more appealing, the 2025 plan adds a new twist: voting power. Unlike the 2018 options, Musk could start voting with shares before they even vest. That's what Musk wants most: influence. But not everyone's clapping. Proxy advisory firms have already told shareholders to vote no. They call the package too large and unduly influenced by Musk. And here's what Denholm's letter doesn't mention: Tesla's real problems. The lineup is aging. Competition from China and Europe is fierce. Regulatory credits, a key profit driver, are vanishing. FSD, that is full self-driving, still isn't fully self-driving. And Musk's side projects, from politics to social media chaos, have turned off institutional investors.
I'm not just MAGA. I'm dark, gothic MAGA.
Yet Tesla's board isn't offering a plan to fix these. Just a reminder that Musk could walk. So is this real or a $1 trillion bluff? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Musk has threatened to leave before. He never really has. He flirts with departure the way he flirts with Mars colonization, dramatically and often. But this time might be different. Or maybe it's just Act 3 of the same old play. Because when it comes to Elon Musk and Tesla, one thing's certain. The drama always pays.
Yeah, we'll only be doing the...
Our next story is special. It's a new chapter in India's aviation ambitions. It's a first in nearly 40 years. India plans to build a commercial passenger aircraft, a made-in-India passenger jet. And who will make it? HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. They've signed a deal with Russia's United Aircraft Corporation. Together, they will make the SJ-100 commuter jet in India. The deal was signed in Moscow, and if it takes off, it could change how India flies. Let's start with the aircraft itself. It's called the SJ-100. This is a twin-engine jet with one engine on each wing. It's a narrow-body aircraft, which means that there's only one aisle inside with seats on either side, like most domestic planes that you board. It is designed for short-haul flights with a range of over 3,000 kilometers. And it can carry about 100 passengers, which is perfect for regional routes in India. The idea is to connect smaller cities to bigger hubs and to make air travel more accessible. The implications are larger than that, though. This deal marks India's return to passenger plane manufacturing. Like I said, it's the first such attempt in 4 decades. The last one was the Avro HS-748. It was built by HAL2 under license from Britain back in the 1960s. Its production ended in 1988. Since then, HAL has been building military aircraft. But now they're returning to civil aviation, and the timing is opportune. India's aviation market is expanding rapidly. Look at the traffic last year. More than 174 million passengers flew on Indian airlines. Indian carriers have ordered hundreds of new planes to meet this growing demand. It's one of the fastest growing aviation markets in the world. This growth also brings a new ambition: to design, build and service aircraft at home. Of course, it won't be easy. Civil aircraft manufacturing is one of the hardest industries to enter. It requires stringent safety approvals, reliable supply chains and long-term trust from airlines. This is a market dominated by 2 global giants, Airbus and Boeing. They control most of the world's commercial fleet. They have built scale and reputation over decades. Others have tried to compete, but they've struggled. Take China, for example. China built the C919 aircraft to challenge Airbus and Boeing, but the plane still uses Western engines and avionics. Now there are trade tensions with the US, and this has slowed deliveries and limited exports. Then we have Russia. They have faced even bigger problems. Sanctions due to the Ukraine war have cut off access to Western components. Production targets have been revised multiple times. New aircraft models have struggled to scale up. And all of this shows how tough this industry really is. Building a passenger jet demands precision, reliability, and experience. India has the talent. India has built military aircraft, but civil jets are a different ballgame. Because here, every part is regulated, every failure is public, and every success is hard-earned. So this project is a good start. It will not transform Indian aviation overnight, but it does mark where the country wants to go. Big tech is back in the headlines. The industry that built the future is now rewriting its own. They're cutting jobs. They're restructuring terms of engagement. And at the center of this churn is artificial intelligence. The latest company to make headlines is Amazon. It plans to cut thousands of jobs. Reports say anywhere between 14,000 to 30,000 jobs will be cut. Amazon says it is becoming leaner and more efficient. Of course, it's not the only company doing this. It's a familiar story across Silicon Valley. Microsoft, Google, Meta, they've all been slashing jobs as they pour billions of dollars into AI. These companies say it is evolution. Critics say it is a warning that automation is moving faster than people can adapt. So is this the future of work? The cost of innovation? Or both? Here's our report.
Amazon is cutting jobs again. In its latest round, Amazon is axing 14,000 corporate roles. It's one of the company's biggest layoffs to date. The announcement came after a report suggested the number could be much higher, as many as 30,000 positions. Amazon hasn't ruled that out. These cuts affect corporate staff, teams in management, human resources, operations, and technology. Its warehouse or delivery workers are not affected, at least for now. The company's corporate workforce totals around 350,000 people worldwide. The e-commerce giant had about 1.56 million full-time and part-time employees at the end of last year. In its message to the employees, the company said it must, quote-unquote, be organized more leanly. It further said, the goal is to remove layers, reduce bureaucracy, and focus resources on Amazon's biggest bets. Those bets now center on artificial intelligence. Employees losing their jobs will have 90 days to apply for new roles within Amazon. Recruiters have been told to prioritize them. Those unable to find a new position will receive severance pay and health benefits. This isn't the first time Amazon has cut jobs. Between 2022 and 2023, it eliminated about 27,000 corporate positions. At the time, the company said it had overhired during the pandemic when online demand surged. So why another round now? Partly because of artificial intelligence. Chief Executive Andy Jassy says AI is transforming how work gets done. He predicts fewer people will be needed for some tasks, and new skills will be required for others. Amazon is also spending heavily to keep up in that race. It plans to invest roughly $118 billion this year, mostly in AI and cloud infrastructure, and Amazon isn't alone. Across the tech industry, the same trend is playing out. Microsoft, Google, Meta, and others have all announced layoffs this year. Together, these companies have reportedly cut around 98,000 jobs so far. For all of last year, that number was about 153,000. Yet at the same time, they're hiring in artificial intelligence research, chip design, and data science. Companies say they're not shrinking, they're evolving. They see AI as the next growth engine, one that demands fresh talent, new skills, and massive capital. Still, automation is changing the balance of work. Experts say this shift brings both promise and pressure. AI can make companies more productive and profitable, but it can also displace workers faster than economies can adapt. And that's why this debate goes beyond boardrooms. This isn't just a story about layoffs. It's a story about transformation, and a reminder that the AI revolution creates and destroys in equal measure.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Back in the national capital, big development on the cloud seeding front. A Cessna aircraft has now taken off from Kanpur for Meerut for the first such trial. The aircraft is expected to reach Meerut within the next hour, and according to sources, cloud seeding in the region is almost certain to take place today. My colleague Anshul Singh and Shrishti Chaudhary both joining us. Anshul, first give us the latest. Any update on whether the experts feel the conditions are apt today? Because it still depends on what the weather in Kanpur, Meerut and so on can be like.
Well, yes, the first issue that was being faced by the administration was that the visibility in Kanpur was not adequate for the Cessna aircraft to take off from there. But now what we are picking up latest by the way of sources is that the aircraft has in fact taken off from Kanpur and is now about to reach Meerut in the next few minutes. Once it reaches Meerut, then it will go ahead and try to seed clouds out here in the national capital. If I could just show you in the visuals over here as well, there is already a lot of clouds that have gathered over the national capital region. In fact, there are heavy rains that are being reported from places like Agra as well. But yes, the government will definitely try to make sure that they carry out this experiment of cloud seeding today itself. So within the next few hours, we can expect that the process of cloud seeding would start depending upon the condition of the clouds, because remember, more than 15% of moisture is required in these clouds so that cloud seeding could happen successfully. If at all there is a lot of moisture in the clouds, then this entire process could take somewhere around half an hour for the rains to come down after the clouds have been seeded. If at all the moisture content is a bit on the lower side, then it could take somewhere around 2 hours. What will be the exact locations where the cloud seeding will happen? That is something that the pilots and the experts would have to decide once they take that flight to with the purpose of seeding clouds out here in the national capital. So today, the government is very, very hopeful that they will be able to carry out this entire process of cloud seeding. When will that happen? What are the locations? That is something that that the government will have to figure out once that Cessna aircraft enters into the airspace of the national capital.
All right. Shrishti, what more are you learning? What are the kind of conditions that will be absolutely key for this trial to go ahead today?
Yes, Shivani. So see, it's a very difficult exercise because it depends highly on the weather conditions over Delhi. Now, initially, the IIT Kanpur team had earmarked an area in northwest Delhi, because the experiment cannot be performed over security installations. So they had selected some region over northwest Delhi, but the precise location for the artificial rain will depend exactly on the cloud formation. Now, as the India Meteorological Department had already predicted that there would be a western disturbance. So the western disturbance, which is like a tropical storm that brings rain, has already impacted northwest India. Yes. And there are parts of northern regions which are expecting rain, but we'll have to see once the aircraft actually enters the Delhi airspace, the wind conditions, the temperature, the cloud heights, the size of clouds, which will actually determine whether they can go ahead with the experiment. And I think viewers must understand that it's very difficult to really distinguish if it's a natural rain or an artificial rain. It's only when the experiment is completed that there will be a confirmation that it has been successfully completed. Also, it also depends upon the intensity of spraying, because the rainfall could be just in very trace amounts. It could be 1 mm, 2 mm. This experiment is being performed to check if the air quality can be cleaned. So that depends upon really the intensity and the amount of rain that can happen. And this is actually for the first time that artificial rain is being performed or is being conducted to actually see if it can improve air quality of a region, and especially for the national capital, which suffers from a very bad air quality every winter. As for the latest update also, it's hovering, the AQI is hovering around 300, 305, which falls into the very poor category. So highly probable scenario, and we'll have to see how the experiment eventually goes.
The main aim is to kind of give relief from the very poor levels of pollution and particulate matter. In some places in Delhi and NCR, it actually feels worse than very poor. It could be very much in the severe category. But moving on.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news.
Our final story tonight is from the Caribbean. A powerful storm is moving in from the sea. It's called Hurricane Melissa. Winds are reaching 280 kilometers an hour. Rain is coming down in sheets and coastal towns are emptying out. This is a Category 5 hurricane, which is the highest level of storm on record. It is strong enough to flatten homes and flood entire neighborhoods. It is the strongest storm on Earth this year and the worst that Jamaica will be facing in years. The island is bracing for impact. Elsewhere, Cuba and Haiti are also preparing 7 lives have already been lost and millions more are in the storm's path. Here's a report.
The skies over Jamaica have turned dark. Winds are howling, waves are crashing into the shore, and an island is holding its breath. Hurricane Melissa is closing in. It is a Category 5 storm. It's the strongest storm Jamaica has seen since records began 174 years ago. Winds are reaching 280 kilometers per hour, gusts even stronger. It is moving slowly, only 7 kilometers per hour. Experts say the storm's slow pace could bring hours of destruction once it hits. The storm's outer bands are already pounding the island. Palm trees strain and buckle in the wind, waves slam into the harbor, and the streets of Jamaica's capital, Kingston, are deserted. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says there is no infrastructure in Jamaica that can withstand a storm of this scale. His government has done all it can. Evacuation orders have been issued. Shelters are open. Hospitals have moved patients to higher floors. But many residents are still at home. Some say they fear looting. Others say they have nowhere else to go. The Red Cross says up to 1.5 million people could be affected. Coastal towns are already cut off. Relief teams are standing by, ready to move once the winds ease. The World Meteorological Organization calls this hurricane, quote-unquote, the storm of the century.
It's a massive hurricanes heading towards Jamaica, and it would have a direct impact in the coming hours into Jamaica. So the winds for Jamaica is expected to reach about 280 kilometers per hour, with gusts picking up to 350 kilometers per hour.
Rainfall could reach 700 millimeters. That's twice Jamaica's usual monthly average. Storm surges of up to 4 meters are expected on the southern coast. Officials warn of flash floods and landslides. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says Melissa is catastrophic. Winds near its center are strong enough to destroy most buildings. The storm has already claimed lives. 3 people have reportedly died in Jamaica, 3 more have died in Haiti, and reportedly 1 has died in the Dominican Republic. In Cuba, more than 600,000 people have been evacuated. Classrooms have turned into shelters. Doctors and volunteers are providing food and care to families seeking safety. In Santiago de Cuba, one woman says she fled because her home could not survive the wind.
My house is in very bad condition. The members of government quickly told me that I had to evacuate as soon as possible due to the proximity of this Category 5 hurricane. It is very dangerous for Santiago de Cuba. We must preserve life. We must preserve it above all else.
In Haiti, more than 3,600 people have moved to temporary shelters. Flights have been suspended, and boats are banned from sailing. Melissa is now reportedly the strongest storm this year. It has already rewritten weather records across the Caribbean. For Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti, the fight is now for survival. When the wind dies down, what remains will tell the story of this fierce storm.
Another war has ended, and once again, guess who is claiming credit? Donald Trump. Although this time it's not a real war, it is the console war between PlayStation and Xbox. These two brands have a long-running feud, but recently things have thawed. Microsoft is bringing its popular game Halo to PlayStation. Earlier, you could only play this game on Xbox. But next year, it will come to PlayStation. This led gamers to joke that the console war was over, and on cue, the White House chimed in.
Back in the national capital, big development on the cloud seeding front. A Cessna aircraft has now taken off from Kanpur for...
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh John. Well, big breaking news coming in at the top of the bulletin, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has now directed his military to launch immediate and